Hey business anchors, Dan Knowlton here, and today we're diving into the essential skills every founder needs to maximise business profits.
Okay, there's evidence behind all these, by the way, guys. We haven't just plucked them out of our
Bumholes.
Yeah, you said it.
Get ready to discover how emotional intelligence, data science and analytics, storytelling, branding, collaboration, networking, and strategic planning can take your business to new heights. Do you want to know how you can get a full-time data analyst working for you for $20 a month, Lloyd?
I'm skeptical, but yeah.
It's called ChatGPT. This episode is packed with actionable insights and strategies to boost your profitability. Let's jump right in. This is episode 158 of the Business Anchors podcast.
We're just a couple of business anchors. Welcome to the Business Anchors podcast. This jingle is slightly too long. This jingle is slightly too long.
Lloyd, what are the skills that founders need to have to maximise profits? And if they don't have them now, how can they develop them?
Do you know what? This is a huge coincidence because this episode, we're going to be answering that question.
Wow.
That exact question.
What a new format.
So we're outlining the skill sets that founders need to maximise profits. We're not just doing that. We're going to talk about how these skill sets and this knowledge increases profits in your business.
With examples and interesting stories?
Yes, and then we're going to talk about exactly how they can gain that knowledge or skills if they don't have them already.
Bloody hell.
I know. We've really thought about this. We've thought about you anchors. We're giving you guides on all of these things. It's going to be so good. Do you want to hear what the first skill set is?
Let's get going. Let's see
Okay.
if we've got these skills.
First one.
Yep.
Okay. There's evidence behind all these, by the way, guys. We haven't just plucked them out of our...
Bumholes.
Yeah. You said it. So the first one is emotional intelligence. So basically developing emotional intelligence helps us understand customer needs and build business relationships. I think that's the key thing that like makes this more profitable for your business, because there's a lot of obviously emotional intelligence can be seen as a bit fluffy, and it's like, yeah, how's that going to fit the bottom line, or whatever a traditional business person would say in a traditional business voice. But our experiences, I think, are that having this emotional intelligence, understanding what your customers want and need, and really, really understanding and reading between the lines can have a massive effect on the business and increase profitability. I don't know what you think, Dan.
Yeah, I agree. I was just thinking of a story that showed how I didn't have much emotional intelligence.
This is good. We're being honest.
I mean, I think I've developed my emotional intelligence a lot. And as the person who heads up our sales, it's important to have emotional intelligence and understand people's needs and that kind of thing. But when we started out, I remember a situation where we went to a pitch that we didn't realise was a pitch. And then we drove all the way to Brighton, did this pitch. And then I remember getting out of it and I was like, brilliant, absolutely smashed that. And you were like, are you joking? And you obviously could read the room better than I could, that they were like, what on earth are these two doing? And I thought we did well.
We just turned up for a meeting to chat about something and they were like ready for us to pitch to them. But I do think, Dan, the reason why this is the first one we're talking about, this really doesn't come naturally to everyone.
No.
Which makes it such a valuable skill set for business leaders to have to be able to increase profitability. So one of the examples of how it would increase profits is, so say, Dan, if you continue to lack emotional intelligence like that, no, but if that's what you were like all the time and you hadn't improved the skill set over all the years and things, we as a business would have continued to put loads of effort into those kind of relationships that we'd already basically, there's no chance, there's no chance we're going to win that business or work with that client, and because you haven't read it, or you put time into the wrong thing. So you're like, oh, this client, they're going to absolutely love us talking about this. Let's do this whole presentation around this. And then you get in there and actually they don't care about that stuff because you haven't understood them properly.
Yeah, my example was an extreme example, but thinking like more in a normal situation, if you slightly get wrong, I'm thinking of a sales process because I've got my head in this a lot. If you slightly get wrong and don't understand what the customer wants, and then you put all of your resource into coming up with a plan that doesn't actually meet their requirements, you've wasted a huge amount of resource and time into something that you're not actually going to win because you haven't presented a solution that's right for the customer. Yeah. And I think that can happen a lot.
Yeah. I would say as well with this, guys, like this is something I think a lot of people really struggle with. Like, you know, some people naturally, and I would personally say I feel like I'm in this category. I feel like I can be in a room and know a lot of things about people before some other people, like before you do normally, Dan.
Yeah.
Like that's my kind of skill set. I think I've always been, I'm good at naturally, and you've had to work on, whereas there's lots more that you're much better and I've had to work on. But I do think if you're at the point where you're just like, that, this is just not my thing, I think this is going to be, I've tried this and I just cannot get it. And obviously there's some people mentally, it's just not possible for them to. No, I'm not saying that in a bad way.
You looked at me when you said that.
It's just it's just the truth. I think another way to increase profitability in your business is to make sure you add that skill set to your team. So if you know that you find it hard, if your job is to sell your business, you're a founder and you're like, okay, this is on me. Get someone that's really good at that emotional intelligence and have them in a role that comes in with you to those pitches, and you can have a debrief afterwards and bounce off each other. And they might say, do you know what? I got the feeling that Tim really valued price, and we're trying to propose this new stuff on the value we're providing, but actually it sounds like he really needs to find the lowest cost thing he can work with.
But what if you want to improve your own emotional intelligence? Like I can imagine anchors listening like me, like I actually don't just want to go the easy route and hire someone that's good at it. I want to improve my own emotional intelligence. What can I do?
So first thing is practicing active listening. So a very basic definition of this is seeking to understand rather than reply. So if you're having a conversation, most of us naturally, we're hearing what the other person's saying, and in our mind we're thinking, I'm going to say this now. It's basically, what am I going to say now? I'm going to say this. I need to tell him this about me.
Okay, me.
And no, I'm not saying that, but I do think that's quite natural. This is how a conversation flows. Right, he said that. He said he went on holiday to Tenerife. I'm going to tell him about the hotel I stayed in Tenerife.
Prompts that I can then come back. Yeah,
which I think is a positive thing for building relationships and having conversations. That's how conversations work a lot of the time. But active listening, seeking to understand, you actively try and think, right, they're saying they've been to Tenerife. I want to understand how their holiday was, where they went and what they did. So then rather than going, I'm going to tell you this thing, I'm going to say this, it's, and who did you go with? Do you have a family in Tenerife? And obviously this isn't a business conversation.
So it's not just understanding what they're saying, it's understand what they mean by what they're saying.
Yes.
If that makes sense. Is that what?
They might be telling you, one of your employees might be telling you, had a great holiday in Tenerife, because they're hinting that we really need a better work-life balance.
Oh, right.
And so sort of saying, so why did you enjoy that so much? Might give them the opportunity to say, well, I have been really struggling. It's been really intense at work. So to have that break. Whereas if you just went from a thing of, I've been to Tenerife too. I had a great time and I did this, and what you want to say
you're not
to
actually
them,
listening to what they mean.
You haven't gained that knowledge and understand what they want. So that's one thing. And you can look on YouTube and you can read books about active listening. But I think that's a really great tip.
That is interesting.
Obviously, again, just saying these won't make you improve, but you can look this up, like trying to improve your empathy. Again,
what does that mean? How do you do that?
You can read about that and look at YouTube. I won't go into huge detail, but improving self-awareness as well. So we all have varying levels of self-awareness, of kind of being aware of our strengths and weaknesses and what we're what people might be thinking of us in the room. Some people completely get it, some people don't, and I think improving that. But one tip you can definitely do straight away is seeking feedback from customers and employees and people you work with to understand their perspectives and emotions and feelings better. So one way we've done this, we send customer feedback forms to people we've worked with. We send feedback forms to deals that don't close. So people that say, no, we don't want to work with you at this point. We now say,
why?
We say, okay, that's fine, but we'd really appreciate it if you could tell us why. And we try and learn from that. And you can only improve these skills if you ask for feedback from people. It's very rare for people to be so emotionally aware that they don't need to hear anything from others. They all know it from their own head. So I think asking for that feedback and listening to it is how you're going to improve emotional intelligence.
Something we're not doing that I want us to start doing, Lloyd, you made me think of this, which we got as advice from another agency owner we met the other day, is send feedback to new customers that we did win as well, and ask them why they wanted to work with us, because that reinforces the good stuff we're doing as well as the not so good things we're doing.
You read a lot of books on this and that type of thing. Are there any recommendations of that kind of thing people could read to try and
Yes.
improve emotional intelligence on this as well and understand their customers better?
Yeah, so one of my favourite all-time books is a really old one, but How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I think I've mentioned this loads of times
It's a
on the pod.
classic, isn't it?
Short book, easy to read. I know Lloyd takes the piss out of me because it's got big text on it, so Dan can read it.
Short book, easy to read. The cat sat on the mat.
But it is actually shut up. It is actually that what it says on the tin. Yeah, it's a short, easy to read book, but it's got like I think there's 10 or 11 like key takeaways from the book. It really teaches you about how to get people to like you,
Right.
which is a huge part of achieving anything you want to achieve, because you need to convince other people to do stuff.
It's underrated, isn't it? Some people kind of have the thing of like, oh no, I don't care what people think of me, and like I kind of get that, but also it does make things hard.
Yeah, it does make things hard. And this has got some real takeaways. Some of them are really simple. So he says about using people's names. What is it? I can't remember exactly what he says in the book, but he's
good,
like
Dan.
everyone's exactly. Everyone's name is the favorite word that they can hear. So, and it does make, like, I've found this when people say my name, it's like, oh, they remember who I am.
It is weird. It's so simple, isn't it? We discussed this before with like building business relationships. That little thing in your mind goes, "Oh, they remember me."
Another really good takeaway is be genuinely interested in other people. People love talking about themselves, so showing an interest. Funny story. This weekend we had my son's birthday at my house, and my friend Leandro was speaking to our dad. I haven't told you this, and apparently they had a really good chat. And then in the gym, Leandro said to me, "Oh, your dad was doing that tactic where he asked you loads of questions about yourself because he's showing an interest." And I was like, that's just him. He's not doing a tactic to try. But he was relating back to the book, like, oh, the thing where you show interest. So Dad, I think Dad's quite good at that. And
shout out to Mark.
Another thing, be quick to acknowledge your own mistakes. I've been really trying to improve this, especially in like our management meetings when I don't get things right. Rather than getting defensive, naturally I do get defensive, trying to be like, did I make a mistake there? Yeah, I did. How can I improve that and admit to it rather than just, no, I didn't do it. Yeah. One other book, just before we move on, this has been an absolute game changer for me. Okay. And this is more focused around sales and the qualification process, which is all about understanding your customers and their needs and their wants and that kind of stuff. One of my other mates, I referenced him before, we call him Cat, but his name's Ollie.
Milk drinker, sleeps on sofas and stuff.
Yeah, and he's got a dead cat on his head. Yeah. Hairstyle.
Yeah.
He works in enterprise sales and does really well and earns loads of money. And he's got this book, this framework that they use in this huge company to help qualify customers. And it's a framework called MEDDIC. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Highly recommend anyone who works in sales to look at this. I literally cannot put this book down, but it's got an acronym which spells out MEDDIC, which is metrics, economic buyer, decision criteria, decision process, identify pain, and champion. And it talks through all these different elements in a deal that you need to be qualifying to be in the best position possible to understand that customer's needs and who's the decision maker and what the pain is to sell them what you're trying to sell them. Really recommend reading this book. It's really a great book. So MEDDIC, that's what I'm currently reading.
Nice.
So yeah, definitely try those out. Talking of metrics, which was one of the points of MEDDIC, Lloyd, what's your take on data science and analytics as a skill set? Because I know that's something you're interested in.
Yeah, don't worry. It's not like the last episode. I'm not going to talk about loads of numbers, but I do think data science and analytics is a skill set that can really increase profitability if you have it as a leader. So it provides insights into customer behavior, market trends, competitions, and massive thing that has helped us along the way of growing our business and helping things is it enables you to make data-driven decisions. So if you know how to look at the data, and this could be your sales data, this could be data of one of your social campaigns, this could be data on how your employees are performing. But if you know how to look at the data and analyze it, you can make decisions not just off on your kind of feeling, which sometimes there's an element of that. It is good to use, but you can also back it up with data. So sometimes in our management meetings, I basically put something forward to you and Dad and say, this is what I'm proposing. Usually you'll be quite critical and fire questions at me, and I'll make sure I have the data.
Say stuff like that.
Yeah. I'll make sure I have the data to be like, oh, it makes sense to spend this here because X, Y, Z. and you can make those data.
And you love a spreadsheet.
Yeah, I love a spreadsheet. Yeah. It also optimizes your marketing strategies and resource management. Those are things that, if you optimize those things, it increases your profits. If you spend less resource to get the same output, you're gonna have more profit. And if you get more output of your marketing strategies for the same money you put in, you're going to get more profit. So
it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. So how to improve the skill? Because obviously some people, like, numbers are their thing. There'll be some listeners that are like, yeah, this is my jam. Oh, sounded a bit like a boomer then. I'm trying to be cool. But some people be like, oh my God, this is, I just make decisions, think it off my gut and stuff. But this is the sort of thing, thankfully, that, like, there are so many, like, workshops and webinars and YouTube videos on data analysis in business. Like, it's not like, oh, where will I find the information? There's
tons
just
of stuff
absolutely shitloads, basically. But there's also free software that you can, even in social media platforms and, Meta Business Manager and stuff, getting to know those platforms or a CRM system or anything, and getting to know how to use those analytics tools, getting to know how to look at Google Analytics and understanding it. There's basic steps you can take on a very basic level. You might be like, I need to get more people looking at my website to know what my business does. You can learn Google Analytics, start looking at the data and start tracking how things you're trying are working and that kind of thing.
What if I told you, Lloyd, that for $20 a month, you could hire a full-time data analyst that's got the skills of the best data analysts in the world?
I'd assume you'd be wrong.
Well, I'd be right, because it's called ChatGPT.
Oh!
We're already using it. I use it a lot for analysing data. And I really recommend anyone who wants to improve how they're analysing data and can't afford to hire a full-time data analyst, try using ChatGPT, because I've used it for things like, even yesterday, I put in the top performing podcast episodes based on average consumption and the bottom performing, lowest performing podcasts based on average consumption, and asked ChatGPT to give me patterns as to why the top ones were performing so well. And it did an incredible job and suggested new topics that we should have for the podcast based on that data.
And on another level, if you've got a bigger business and this skill set's missing, obviously you can hire a data analyst. So Stephen Bartlett on Diary of a CEO, for example, has a data analyst on the Diary of a CEO team full-time, just analysing the data for their podcast and how things are working and how they can improve things to get more listeners, reach new people, all that kind of thing. Yeah. So,
I mean, that's a sign that it's worthwhile doing if people like that are investing in full-time staff. So moving on from boring data and stuff, Lloyd likes to talk about.
Too much boring stuff.
What about something a bit more exciting, like storytelling and branding, Lloyd?
Yes. Now this is, so less boring. So always good on a podcast. But storytelling, I just think, is such an undervalued skill, and also not always valued when it comes to thinking of profitability of a business and branding. But having a compelling brand narrative and brand image massively resonates with your target audience, and having a brand or being able to tell a story about your brand that can completely differentiate you from your customers. You could say you have a graphic design agency. There are thousands of graphic design agencies that all look, feel, sound the same, and then there might be one or two that communicate in a completely different way, have this great brand, this great story, and they're able to charge 5 times as much. It really is, if you get it right, the reason you can make more profit is because people don't put you in the same group as who would have been your competitors. So it really can drive profits.
Can I give, this is a kind of left field tip for how I think people can improve their storytelling.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to agree with me on this or not, but
go for it.
I think that people should be using story-based platforms more, like Instagram stories or Facebook stories or Snapchat. I think it gives you I know people take the piss upload a video of your dinner or whatever. I don't mean like that. But if you start to share things that are going in your life and start to think more about what are the interesting things happening and how can I shape this into an interesting story throughout your day, on a really basic level, as an absolute starting point from ground zero, you can start to learn about thinking about how you can package something up into an interesting media format or a story. I think it really gets you thinking when you're producing stories on Instagram, how can you create stuff that is going to be interesting for people rather than just like sharing your dinner?
Yeah.
But
But
that's just a really weird.
saying about sharing your dinner, Dan. The reason people take the piss because a lot of people just take a picture of their dinner and post it online. Like, there's some content creators and people I follow that when they share their dinner, I'm absolutely captivated.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, being able to tell a story and captivate attention is a huge skill and really undervalued. And as humans, human evolution, storytelling around a campfire is supposedly how we developed so much. So once we could start communicating, it's basically like, right, I've grunted a few things for you to tell you how to start a fire.
Yeah.
And then the next generation know how to start a fire and they can keep warm and they can live. And we tell those stories, and it is a skill set that is lost on a lot of people, I think, and is so valuable.
I've got another book for you, Lloyd.
Okay.
I think this is book number 3 from this episode.
Yeah.
To do with storytelling. We spoke about this in episode 153 and really broke this book down in detail. So go and listen to that if you're interested. But Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller.
Yeah.
If you're looking to understand how you can tell better stories within your business, definitely, and like talk about what you do in using an effective storytelling format, definitely go and buy Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. Again, it's an easy read. It's not really long with small writing. It's really interesting. And it's helped us. We're currently doing a project to improve how we communicate what we do. It's really given us an effective framework to work by to have a structured way of improving that.
Has it got pictures in it?
It's got pictures in it.
Nice. So if you struggle with some of the words, you can kind of look at those and think, oh, it probably says that.
Yeah. So definitely go and look at, download that, read that book and listen to 100.
Dan hasn't read it, he's just looked at it.
No, I've actually read it a couple of times now.
Good.
Episode 153. Also, another random tip, watch more Netflix. Consume more interesting...
Deal.
No, I know this sounds stupid. Something I found that has helped me improve my storytelling is like watching good series that are good at storytelling. And like, so it can help give you tips of how things are shaped and how there's a story arc. And
I went through a period in my life where I was really trying to improve. This was probably in my early 20s, really trying to like improve my skills and I suppose prove myself as a man and someone that in the workplace is going to be really useful and can do stuff. And I basically stopped watching any like Netflix and stuff, and I stopped reading any fiction because I was like, I need to be learning. So everything I did, I was reading non-fiction books, and I would only watch like documentaries or educational programs. And when I kind of came back round full circle and started reading fiction, watching it, I like had this light bulb moment of like, oh my God, like being able to, having the skills of telling a story is like so useful in business. And I completely disregarded it for a number of years and was like, no, creativity and like storytelling isn't needed. I've got to learn these facts. And it was a real moment for me where I was like, oh man, I've been missing out on this, and you can learn so much from it.
I learned this through speaking at events. When I started out, I thought that a talk was all about sharing as much information as possible to teach people stuff. So it would start with, hi, I'm Dan Knowlton. This is what I do. I'm going to teach you how to do these 3 things.
I can cram as much information and facts in this, you're going to enjoy it and listen to it, and it's going to be valuable.
Exactly. Whereas that didn't work that well. Now, through getting it wrong, I've learned that it's important to start with a captivating story. Like one of my more recent talks that I'm doing this year talks about the crying CEO on LinkedIn and starts with telling that story of what happened with that viral post. And instantly you can tell when you're talking about it, people are actually drawn in. Then you can share like lessons and tips and things, but they're drawn into that story and it gives context to the whole talk.
But when you watch someone on stage like that for this sort of thing and they're good at storytelling, one thing you notice is you don't get bored. There's none of looking at your watch. It's kind of like it finishes and you're like, oh, right, we're at the end. But also reflecting on it, I think now you probably communicate like 20% of like the facts or the points you're like educating people with that you used to, but it still is a much better experience, and you still learn more because you actually you tell the stories around those things and you remember those things, whereas if someone talks to you for 45 minutes and just pure facts like do this, you come away and you probably don't remember any of it.
It's another reason why I've mentioned this guy so many times, but I love listening to Rory Sutherland speak about anything, because he constantly, every point he makes, he tells an interesting story and an interesting analogy, and you remember that story or analogy, and that reminds you of the educational point he's trying to make. So go listen to him.
Massive skill. Develop that skill. It's going to help.
The next skill set really excites me, Lloyd, because it's the same topic of our first ever Business Anchors episode.
Yes. Collaboration and networking.
Yes.
The word networking still makes me cringe. A lot of networking still makes me cringe. But I have to say that developing the skills to be able to build relationships and meet new people, communicate with them, and kind of start partnerships and new relationships and things that you don't even know are possible with new people. It's such a big skill. And I just want to say a few points. So firstly, our relationship with a local agency got us our longest standing client at Knowlton, who originally said they've got less than £10,000 for a new website, and they've spent like 6 figures over years with us here. Our relationship with a runner on a set recently, someone on film crew helped us contact a celebrity we wanted to work with for a project. Our relationship with a business next door has led to us talking to one of their suppliers in Israel about becoming a new client. Like, there's this pattern in my experience of relationships that you have no idea where they're going to go, but they result in positive outcomes for the business that you wouldn't understand. And without starting those relationships or knowing how to communicate with people and build those relationships, none of those positive things would have happened.
Our relationship with a guy who started a company years ago that eventually went on to sell it to Adobe got us this sponsorship for our podcast.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many examples. It really resonates to me what you're saying, like building those relationships, but not in a... Like, if you listen to episode 1 of Business Anchors, you'll hear us talk about all the cringe things that go on with networking and stuff. But I guess for those that are listening, thinking, yeah, I want to collaborate and network in a way that's going to work for me, what can they do that isn't like just going to those pointless breakfast networking things? Like, what tips would you have?
Well, I think like attending... I think you should attend events. Like, with networking, there's always some rubbish ones where it's a load of people trying to sell to each other, and it's kind of like, okay, like everyone looking for short-term wins of, I'm going to try and make some money from people around me. But I would say it's worth experiencing those to find good ones where you can meet people that you have things in common with and can build relationships with. So attending industry events, and like I said, you might attend 6 of them this year. 2 of them you might be like, oh my God, I would never go back. 2 of them might be all right, and 2 you might really enjoy, meet some really interesting people and kind of hit it off straight away and build relationships from those things. I think actively participating in like networking events as well. So doing your best not to just go there and sit with a coffee in the corner or be on your phone or be on your laptop and think, oh, I just want to see this person speak and then I'm going to just work on my own with my headphones on. I think you need to, this comes more naturally to some more than others, but actually going out and starting conversations with people and meeting people. And obviously that's quite a life skill as well as like business.
Just one question. What if you're at a networking event and someone asks you to sort of close your eyes and they try healing you with crystals? What do you do then?
My experience personally with this is I'd let it happen. And then afterwards, when they ask me if I feel better, I just reinforce what everyone else has said to them that makes them think they're a healer and say, yeah, I do feel better. Thank you very much. Yeah.
That's one of the stories we shared in episode 1 of Business Anchors, but that tickles me every time because I can just imagine you being polite person.
So I remember that networking event. So
you got healed.
I have to admit, I haven't kept in contact with that person that healed me with those stones.
Because they healed you.
Because they healed me, did their job. But there's relationships that came out of that for years after that. There was someone who was in a travel agent who I really got on well with, and I met them there, and he helped me with some stuff when I was arranging a stag do. You know, I know this isn't a business outcome, but there's things that you wouldn't know would come out of it. I remember that room when I was selling my house. There was an estate agent there that gave me some really good advice. So, yeah, these relationships, you don't know where they're going to go. And I think just seeking mutually beneficial relationships, like authentically. So not going, right, who can I sell to in this room? Just being like, knowing you don't know where these things are going to go, but, oh, we've got some things in common. Or like, we're both business owners. Or, oh, we're both in the similar marketing roles of similar businesses. And starting a conversation, trying to learn from each other, ask about their experience is going to end well with the the butterfly effect, compound effect over years. It's gonna
definitely read How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah.
I learned so much about how to be better at networking and building relationships by reading that book and then applying what I'd learned in a authentic way.
And just I suppose for those that are more nervous in those situations, putting yourself out there in a room where you don't know anyone, or going into a big conference hall when you don't know anyone, just know that you're going to have a few awkward moments. You're going to speak to a few people where you come out of it thinking, I didn't really like them.
Do you remember your first time standing up? You know, when we used to go to those breakfast networking things and you have to say what you do?
Yeah.
Like, I was so scared. It was horrible.
I remember in my head, I was thinking so we were called KPS Digital Marketing for the first year
what
or
did you even say?
I remember in my head, it was coming around a circle and you had to stand up and you had 30 seconds
Your
or a minute.
heart's racing.
My heart's racing. In my head, I'm thinking, hi, I'm Lloyd from KPS Digital Marketing. We help businesses grow online or something. And then I'd stand up and go, hi, I'm KPS from Lloyd Marketing Digitally, helping you online, Lloyd. And I'd sit down and I'd just be sweating, thinking, oh shit, I fucked it up again. But at the same time, you have to go through a couple of those. And then when I used to go to those events regularly back in the day, then the fifth time I stood up, I was like, right, God, I've actually learned how to communicate what I do now, which is a really great skill. I can stand up for a minute, explain what I do and what my business does. And, so it's just completely worth it. It's worth that first one of saying your name wrong and just sweating and feeling nervous.
Yeah. Good. Can I share a skill set that I think is really important?
Let's have a final skill set.
Strategic planning.
Ooh. Interesting.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting.
Okay.
So I think, what is strategic planning? Being able to plan effectively and also change that plan as things change externally. So this is something for us that I think we've been really good at, especially more recently, is looking at our current plan and what's our strategy, how's that performing, and if it's not performing as well as it should do, then making changes to that to come up with a new plan that's going to help you generate more profit.
I think something's hard. A lot of people have the skill set of being able to follow a plan. Some people don't, and it's tough. But a lot of people that I've worked with are if you give me a plan, that you just know that they're going to follow that and it's going to be great. But it's quite a different skill set being able to have a plan and then looking at it and thinking, this isn't working right. We need to build a new strategy. We need to plan something new. We need to adapt this. And I think being able to adapt those kind of strategies and put together new strategies quickly is a really valuable skill set.
This was one of my tips for how do you improve this skill set, which sounds weird, but my tip was by fucking up.
Yeah.
You soon learn that you can't just have a strategy for the year that you sit down and do for the year. You need to constantly, things need to go wrong, and then you need to change that and evolve it so that you're improving performance.
We've been working with some of our clients on this. They've worked with other agencies that basically put a strategy in place and then create a load of content for the year and then just post it, and nothing changes because they've created this plan at the start of the year. And then they've kind of come to us oh yeah, it didn't really work. They just kind of did this stuff. And we're oh no, that's not how we work. We work on okay, we've got an initial plan. Let's do stuff for a month. Let's look back. What's worked, what hasn't. Then it's adapting that strategy in the plan and not constantly, because I suppose you don't want to be going different directions all the time, but having a kind of routine you're in where you look at the plan. Is this working? Do we need to change anything? Do we need a new strategy moving forward because this thing has changed? This thing in the business has changed, or this thing on this social media platform we're using has completely changed.
Yeah.
And it's just such a good skill set to have, being able to adapt to change quickly rather than wasting money and resources on things that don't.
I feel we've spoken about this before, the Entrepreneur's Operating System has given us a framework to keep accountable every week in our weekly meetings for how the strategy is going. And it makes us realize, is this working? Are we hitting these KPIs? If not, then it gives us the input to then change that. One other tip, just a final tip I wanted to share about strategic planning and how to improve your own strategic planning, is to get input from external people who have more experience than you. We've had mentors in the past, we've paid for coaching from people who have achieved what we want to achieve. Getting that external validation and input has really helped us to evolve how we plan and strategize. So definitely look to try and get those mentors and get that input to improve.
Just make sure if you're looking for a mentor, they've achieved what you actually want to achieve to find the right person.
Yeah. Good. Well, hopefully, Anchors, you found this useful. Hopefully, this is going to get you taking action and improving those skills that we're saying are important to improve your profitability.
I would say just picking one of those things and setting a goal, right, for the next 3 months, I'm going to focus on improving that skill set. Because obviously all 5, I think there's 5 there, wasn't it?
I think that was
hard. But if there's one you think, oh, that's the one I'm weaker at, put yourself out there. If it's networking and collaboration, set a few goals and tasks for the next 3 months of, okay, I'm actually going to go to a few events and I'm just going to make myself each time speak to 3 new people and see where it goes.
And then leave us a review, basically.
Set that as your main task.
Yeah.
Before the stuff that helps you help us.
And we'll
see you in your ears next week.